Nico Iamaleava was fine for UCLA, but UCLA had no defense whatsoever as they got blown out at home by Utah in the season opener. Yikes.
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this reaction episode of Locked On UCLA. I'm your host, Zach Anderson Yoxheimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast, and it's available on YouTube. Like, comment, subscribe, download. Thanks for your support. Welcome back, everydayers. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Well, you had all the anticipation. As a UCLA fan, we waited all day, literally, with an 8 p.m. Pacific time kickoff. And then UCLA came out and watched Utah go right down the field and score. Nico came down. The Bruins were aggressive right away, and they missed what could have been an easy touchdown early in the game to potentially give them an early lead. After that, no chances to take the lead. There were some swings in momentum, but the glaring things that UCLA struggled with was the inability to have Nico have any time to throw the ball. All right, Nico in this game, you look at the final numbers, 50% completion percentage, 136 yards, passing, 1 touchdown. He rushed it for almost 50 yards on the ground. There's craziness in this moment for Nico where it's like, oh man, even though he had close to 50%, there's no protection. There's no room for running the ball for a guy that was making every play to try and keep the Bruins in it when it was still early on. But the problem is, in this game, UCLA had no defense whatsoever. None. Absolutely none. All that talent that's gone off the defensive line from 2 years ago in the NFL, whatever was left over from last year, gone. All the linebackers that were super talented, gone. The DBs that were brought in the transfer portal, the youngsters with the coaching switches, did not make the plays, but largely that's because Utah came in there and pounded almost 100 yards on the ground in the first quarter alone. Like, literally, what are you doing? It was right down their throats. Boom, boom, boom. And the only time UCLA was able to get a stop in the first half was because Utah literally dropped the ball off a kickoff, still moved the ball, but eventually had to punt it. A momentum-swinging play was in the second half when Isaiah Chisholm was blitzing off the edge, had Dampier right there in its grasp and couldn't bring him down, would have been third and extra long, and instead UCLA let him get positive yardage. Next, it was third and 9. The Bruins could have had the guy tackled, and he breaks for a first down. It was a 20-play, 90-yard drive that took the entirety of the third quarter, it felt like, and still led to a 4th down and goal touchdown for the Utah Utes, which just punched him in the face and said, we're more physical, we're more dominant, and This feels eerily similar, even worse in terms of the final score, but eerily similar to UCLA's home opener last year when they played Indiana. A similar team, ironically, wearing red, coming into UCLA, little less unproven compared to Kyle Whittingham versus Curt Cignetti, but Utah came in and just utterly dominated UCLA. A frustrating output for a UCLA team that came with a lot of hope, a lot of hype, and they came in and fell a little short. Under no circumstances was this a game where this was Nico's fault to come out and make plays. He was making plays with his legs, extending plays, taking big hits, extending with his 6'6" frame, and there are moments where UCLA was able to run the ball. The exciting part for this UCLA team was that Tino Sunseri was actually making good play calls. There were adjustments. It was a largely clean game for UCLA. What was chaos in week 1 versus Hawaii last year wasn't as much chaos. Generally, the Bruins knew what they were doing offensively. It was just the inability, talent-wise, to stack up against the Utah defensive front, to keep Nico upright without forcing him outside the pocket and making plays with his legs. A couple of 4th and shorts, the Bruins said, let's go for it. Last year when Deshaun Foster was deciding punt, kick, go for it on 4th down against Hawaii week 1, he's already admitted to it earlier this week before the Utah game. Last year he was nervous when he's never nervous on a football field. This year, clearly, I'm going to go for it 4th down. I'm going to make these decisions. So there's already improvement in this UCLA program from a year ago, despite the final scoreline. Yes, utterly embarrassing. But Utah very well could be, you could say this year's Indiana, but, they're a team that's predicted to be really good. Last year predicted to win the Big 12, and now that they have a new offensive coordinator, a healthy quarterback, a defense that was ready to play, they ran it right down UCLA's throat. The hope for the Bruins is that in the coming weeks, when they play teams that aren't as strong up front, the Bruins can score a lot more points and keep it a little more respectable on the defensive side. The Bruins are going to have to outscore teams to win, where in previous years, last 2 years specifically, UCLA leaned a lot on their defense, whether it was Danton Lynn led, or Ikaika Malloy in year one as the DC, utilizing a strong defensive pressure, or out of nowhere defensive heroes in Kane Medrano and Carson Schlesinger developing these last 2 seasons. They didn't have that this year. The gap in talent in the front seven was there, especially containing the edge with a super speedy Devin Dampier. The hope for UCLA is that when they grow from this game, they can utilize what they missed. Clearly, a lot of tackles. Clearly, the inability to contain the edge with Busick on the outside, to a team that will be able to contain a quarterback like a Calandria from UNLV, or namely Damon Williams Jr. from Washington in November. We'll see a lot about this team come November when Washington comes to town, a similarly built quarterback in stature who can run around the defensive line. Washington so far hasn't been too particularly impressive against Colorado State. That game is not finished as of this recording, but in my mind, if UCLA can grow from this game and improve by the time they play a similar quarterback later in the year, then you have to be proud of that. Because there were still some big plays that were missed by UCLA, chances to bring down guys for losses for 1 to 2 yards, guys put in the right spots after some early adjustments, and the Bruins just couldn't make plays. Absolutely frustrating in a beatdown where the Bruins are going to lose, by 30-plus points? It was frustrating. And this is the season where, especially on the defensive side, even on the offensive side, this is where the Chip Kelly recruiting gap is going to hit the hardest. It wasn't last year. Now, last year, the Bruins struggled offensively. The offensive line was rough. Eric Bieniemy was horrific. Ethan Garbers did his best as the QB1. But clearly, the Bruins were going to get hit hard this year, while UCLA did a lot in the portal to bring in Nico, to bring in some talented guys in the receiver room, to overhaul the offensive play calling with Tino Sunseri coming in. There was clean play. There was some clear-cut decision-making from Deshaun Foster. Special teams, large in part, played its role. We saw a good kick made by Mateen Bagani, aggressive play calling, or aggressive going forward by Deshaun Foster. It's just defensively. You can't give up almost 300 yards rushing when you have UNLV, yes, mind you, against much, much weaker competition, who's rushed for 300 yards and 150 yards in their first 2 wins of the year. Now, Sam Houston State and Idaho State is not the same as what UCLA faced against Utah. The problem for UCLA is how quickly can they change this in this first road matchup when they play UNLV next week? All right, can they get the pressure on? Can they look much better? The hope and the belief is absolutely. Now let's kind of dive into the Nico performance next on Locked On UCLA. College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The rivalries, the tailgates, the energy in the stands, there's just nothing like it. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets can feel more like a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why you should use Gametime, like I do, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees, and you'll see what you pay right up there. If you're looking at the chance to go to the Rose Bowl, when those tickets are going to drop last minute, or if you're going to follow the Bruins in the road, go to Gametime. Pull up Gametime, and in a couple of taps, I saw some amazing deals. I'm talking about college football games with tickets as low as $25 or even lower. In this case, is at the right moment if you caught this UCLA-Utah game. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Gametime today. So what did I think about Nico? Nico came in a lot of hype, being praised as special from CBS Sports in a preseason hype article, in a practice buildup that was very closed. And with quite a few guys out, UCLA still have some talented players in the receiving core out, like a Rico Flores Jr., who could very well be their number one. There wasn't a lot of plays made toward Quasi Gilmer early. And for Nico, a little of inconsistency, a lot less time being able to throw. And what is this where the Tennessee football fans haterade's going to come in? He wanted some good O-line. Well, going to UCLA was not going to help that. Clearly in game one against Utah, not going to happen. But the hope is of the 12-game regular season schedule. You think about the defensive fronts you're going to face. You have Ohio State, you have Penn State, you have Utah. And the rest of them clearly not going to be as daunting as that. And with this being week one, you're not going to face a team that's that strong defensively like Penn State for over a month with the bye week in play. You talked about UNLV that struggled to stop the ball. They forced turnovers, but they've struggled to stop teams defensively. And then you've got New Mexico, who put up a good fight against Michigan in game one today, but it's New Mexico at home. That's a game on a short week UCLA should be able to handle. Then you mix in the Northwestern game and a bye with Penn State coming to town. It'll be quite a few weeks for the UCLA Bruins to right the ship. I don't have a lot of problems with what Tino Sunseri did. Nico played with his heart. Was there frustrating moments, frustrating plays? Absolutely in this game for Nico. But he made a lot of plays to keep UCLA in it when it was still respectable, when it was still a two-score game, when UCLA drove down the field and was getting points. Overall, Nico made some nice plays. And you're like, wow, I didn't know he had that in that repertoire. Facing pressure galore, exotic blitzes, escaping it, sometimes making me worry about ball security. So down the future, he's making similar plays. Look for that ball to pop out. But I was impressed. Now, when it comes to dialing a deep ball deep down the field, hitting his receiver in stride, that didn't exactly happen this year. All right, in this game. And I also looked closely with Joey Aguilar. And I was like, okay, Tennessee was able to keep it simple with Aguilar. And then even he fumbled. He had a turnover in his game against Syracuse. But if you're looking at it, like, would you think that with any other quarterback, this game would have been much closer? No. Nico put in his full effort, made some special type plays. Wow, that's an elite QB. That's an elite player just to even give UCLA a chance to score on a couple of drives. But an overthrow early, maybe switch the momentum. And I just don't think it was an opportune time for him to come in, get the jitters out, and you're already down 6-0. That's just a horrific way to start to build in a new offense where already drive number one, you have to go for it. Fourth down here, fourth down there. That's not a way you want to start your season if you're Nico and you're UCLA. So this is where the Bruins were a little frustrating. And Nico, I'd give him a 6 to a 7. 6 to a 7. Maybe that's being generous. Maybe that's being rough. It was not horrific. I don't think the numbers as it stands finally for Nico, I don't think they were as bad as it looks. Despite the 43-10 loss against Utah, I think he played much better than the numbers dictate. Was he a Heisman winner tonight? No. Is there going to be plenty of Tennessee hate? Sure. But imagine if he was playing a Tennessee uniform. I do think Tennessee would be even better. For UCLA, great plays made by Nico. But there's still a lot to improve from week one to week two. And if UCLA does not, and I mean does not put up a lot of points against the likes of UNLV next week, then we're in uh-oh mode. Because there's got to be significant improvement defensively, offensively, and see if Nico can be in an 8 next week or a 9 statistically against a Rebel squad that has looked horrific against two mediocre teams in week 0 and week 1 defensively. This is where we'll see Nico put up good numbers in week 2 versus what he did against the daunting Utah front. And we're going to talk about that throughout the week and on the next Sunday episode of Locked On UCLA. All right, I'm going to tell you next about the likes of upside. Hey, Locked On UCLA fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use the limited promo code FOOTBALL and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You can make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I was like, wait, that's too good to be true. But it's totally legit. And you can get paid to make the daily commutes while you get cash out anytime to your bank account, PayPal, e-gift card, Amazon, other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using the limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited 25-cent per gallon bonus. That's the promo code FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. That's going to do it for us here at this reaction for Locked On UCLA. Get your hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA fight by fights. Brutal performance by the defense. We're going to have reactions, grades, all my thoughts Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, all the way leading through the rest of the week in the UCLA UNLV matchup. All right. Stay tuned for another postcast with Gavin Carlson coming up soon on this channel. Lots of thoughts to decipher. Defense awful. Offense looking improved with still terrible numbers to go with it. I think there's room for growth, but a horrible start if you look at it from the outside for UCLA. Small, subtle improvements that hopefully will lead to a bowl season and more promising results, not this week, but in the future. All right? But it was certainly ugly, especially in the second half when the Bruins had nothing, could not stop Utah. Ugly, horrible, but I think there's room for growth. Defensively, I don't know what's going to happen. All right? A lot to work on. So this has been Locked On UCLA reaction version. Comment your thoughts, Tennessee Haterade. Bring it on. I know it's coming. This has been Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins.